So, hi everyone and welcome to the next FSLE interview. We are joined now by Laminar Research of X-Plane 11. So, we are with Marty and we're with Ben. So guys, welcome to the interview booth.
Right.
Oh, this is kind of awkward now, the mic in the middle. So far, how has the show been for you guys so far?
It's been absolutely fantastic. We've got 3 systems set up, 2 VR systems. We're having literally a line of people, 4 and 5 deep, waiting to try out for the Laminar landing competition tomorrow, which is going to take place at 9 a.m. And I'll be landing at Juneau in our 737-800 with brand new F-Mod sounds. So it's absolutely incredible approach, and it's something that I'm personally very interested in because I did the same competition probably about 9 to 10 years ago in Seattle at an AvSim convention. Wow. But I was running a different platform and a much older version of Flight Simulator. So this is really exciting for us.
Have you seen anyone so far that's been better than others? Have you seen?
Well, I was just telling Ben, we had a gentleman this morning that landed with a 50-foot vertical rate of descent and put the plane right on the 1,000-foot mark down the runway. So and he said he had never done VR before. I know he's done X-Plane though.
He's definitely been at home practicing.
He's done X-Plane before.
The 737 has some spectacular visual effects if you really crash the heck out of it. And I'm a little disappointed that no one's actually used that yet. I may have to come in and fly it myself and show them how it's done.
We have not had one person this morning actually physically crash the airplane.
Ben, you need to show them how it's done then.
If you don't have an engine fire, you're not trying hard enough.
Good, so the turnout for you guys has been amazing so far, right?
Yeah, and you know, we've been doing shows with the FSExpo crew for a while now, and it's just fantastic to see this level of energy and growth. When we were in Hartford, the keynote in the first one was, does flight simulation have a future? That was the question. And to see it to go from that, from a small regional show in an air museum, to something that people travel to that has bigger numbers every year, where this whole huge room is just filled with exhibitors and people flying, it's been fantastic. It's been a really wonderful resurgence for the hobby. So we've been excited about that.
I've always told people, explained to people that how big the shows were in Europe and how small the shows were in the US, but I think that's going to have to be revised. This is definitely as big as the major shows in Europe.
So there, just for the guys at home who haven't already heard, there are 1,577 confirmed attendees today, which is the biggest event, which exceeds last year's by 400. And I think the thing that impressed me most, and maybe for you guys, was in that hall when the question was asked, did you come last year? I would say only 20% of people said yes, and this is more people from this side of the country, I think, that have attended. So I think just a very quick summary maybe for the guys who aren't familiar with you guys, even though you're doing all sorts of good stuff in the community, maybe just give us a little intro of who you are and kind of what you do at Laminar Research, and we'll start with you, Ben.
So I'm the product director for X-Plane, the desktop version. I'm also one of the original programmers. I'm the first programmer who Austin ever hired to work on his code with him. So I was working with Austin back around the X-Plane 8 days. So I do a lot of work on the graphics. I do a lot of work on the interfaces third parties use to create add-ons. I originally worked on plugins back in the day, but I also do some of the sort of the planning about how X-Plane's features will evolve and how the technology will evolve so we can make X-Plane better. So that's sort of under my umbrella too. We're a small company, so everybody does about 100 things.
Right, awesome, thank you, Ben. And yourself, Marty?
Yeah, I've been in the flight sim business since the late 1990s. And I'd retired. Actually, I had a company called VMAX Flight Systems, and I sold the products in that, and about 8 or 9 years ago got bored being retired, so met with Austin, started part-time doing marketing consulting, and it's kind of grown into a full-time job. So I do marketing for the company, I work the shows, I put together some of our exhibits at the shows. I got X-Plane on Steam, so I do Steam support, and a lot of other different little things, work with the dealers, work with distributors.
So quite keeps you busy, and again, I imagine you get stuck in, just like Ben, with other little bits as well.
Yeah. We're pretty diversified in what we do. You know, we all have a lot of different hats that we wear.
Awesome, great. So you guys are having your seminar a little bit later. You haven't had it yet. It's a bit later in the afternoon. anything you might want to tease with the community about what you might be showing off or what's to come in the future? I think that's probably a question for you, Ben.
We're going to cover a number of things about X-Plane. We're going to give an update on the status of our development with Vulkan. We're going to talk about X-Plane 1135, which is the next patch. We're going to show some of the cool stuff that's in it that has never been seen publicly before. And Chris is also going to talk about our X-Plane mobile product, which is actually a full version of X-Plane running on your phone. People are always, well, a phone's just a toy, but it's the full sim, and he's actually got some pretty cool stuff to show with that too. So we're going to cover the entire range of X-Plane.
Wow, okay, so quite a lot to squeeze into your 50-minute presentation.
We're going to have to talk really fast.
And we're going to have to be there typing really fast just to make sure we catch up with all the news. Cool, so I think I've seen X-Plane grow and grow and grow, and especially with version 11, I think that was really the catalyst for the community to get involved and really start taking it as a hobbyist sim for them. So with that as well, you've also seen a huge increase in third-party support as well from various different developers. So why do you think that has happened, and why do you think now has been the time where you've seen that sudden growth?
It's really been kind of an evolutionary process. I mean, it started back long before X-Plane 11 or even X-Plane 10, but I think one of the biggest things with X-Plane 11 was the fact that we redid the interface. We have a beautiful UI now. A lot of people found the UI a little bit hard to navigate up until X-Plane 11. Plus the changes we made in the scenery engine and the weather, and it's just really reached a critical mass now where everybody is moving over. People are jumping on. Third-party developers are coming on board with us, and it's just amazing. And I see that with every new version, it's just going to grow more and more.
Excellent. Anything to add to that, Ben?
Well, I was going to say, I think putting in the new UI really just released the last thing that was holding back the flood, because we had been incrementally adding new technology, and people would see it and say, oh, that's exciting, but I can't get it working. Yeah. So we sort of knew as the UI was coming that this was going to be the last stumbling block removed, and so finally people were going to be able to make the transition over more easily. And once they did that, then that brought in add-on developers. The add-ons were already getting to be very high quality, and so that brings more users, and so it becomes a virtuous circle as the whole community becomes stronger.
And what about for those third parties who haven't yet started to develop for X-Plane? What are you doing to kind of bridge that gap and get them in board as well?
Well, I think the strongest thing we can do to help attract more third parties is to take care of the third parties that are already there. Yeah. Because what a third party add-on developer needs to see is that the host simulator is going to be a solid place where they can build their business and protect their investment. I've been doing flight simulation for about 20 years now, and the amount of work that goes into an add-on now is so much higher than what it was. You could build an entire airplane in about 6 months with one person when I started. Just one guy does everything, because what was there to do, Yeah. A little bit of texturing on 1K texture and you're done. And now the add-ons are so much more sophisticated. And this has happened because the computers have become so much more powerful, and the community expects that for this better hardware, we're going to get a better simulation experience. So if you're going to go in and you're going to put that many man-years into your add-on, what you really need to be sure of is that it's going to keep working and that there aren't going to be any surprises with the host platform. So we take third-party compatibility very seriously. We started a third-party developer relations program this year so that third parties can be in direct contact with us. They can be in our Slack channel. We can make sure that if they're having problems, they can get access to us, even though more and more people are trying to contact us, and they don't get lost. And so I think by doing that, we can assure add-on developers who are considering X-Plane that they're going to have a good experience when they come over too.
Awesome, good.
There's also a large demand now from the user base. I mean, we have developers coming to us that develop for other platforms and said, I can't believe the number of people that are asking us to do X-Plane development. Yeah. So it's just all like snowballing, which is obviously a good effect.
Yeah, so like you said, the floodgates are open, more and more people are coming, and with more people, developers are more confident. So yeah, it's that vicious circle, that really continuous circle of people, development and stuff, which is really exciting. Good, so you've talked about developer feedback and how you listen to that in terms of bringing that into the sim. So what about from the community themselves? How do you listen to that feedback and incorporate that with your future roadmap and stuff?
It's funny because on Wikipedia, if you look at the genesis of X-Plane, it goes back 25 years, or 24 years. I think we're the only company that has been in that market dedicated just to the flight sim community. I mean, we didn't start out as some big company with a gaming division and, oh yeah, let's make a flight sim game because we've got a bus simulator, we've got a train simulator, and we'll do a flight simulator. You know, we started out doing just flight simulation. We've been dedicated just to the flight sim community for 24 years. And we've never wavered. You know, we've never canceled our product, we've never decided to drop our product or diversify into another kind of platform or another kind of genre. It's always been flight simulation for the community. And that's where we're at, and that's where we're going to stay.
Awesome.
It's worth remembering that X-Plane was built on customer feedback, because if you go back to the early days, it was just Austin and his email and his cell phone. And the early users, if they wanted a bug report, they called him up on the cell phone and they told him what they thought. And so being in touch with the community is really baked into our DNA from day one. When I started working with Austin, I would go down to South Carolina to work with him, and we'd be talking, and all of a sudden his phone would ring and he'd go, Laminar Research. Yeah, that joystick works. No, you have to go to, okay, and he'd hang up. And he was talking to users all the time. So I think one of the challenges for us has just been to deal with the increase in feedback we get now that there's so many more users. But fortunately, you know, we have people like Marty in marketing who are on the forums. We have people watching the live streams. We have, you know, we're on social media. But we also, you know, we read every single bug report that comes in, goes in and gets looked at and gets filed. You know, the email addresses of all our developers are available. And one of the bits of feedback that we get from developers who have come from FSX is, we can't believe we get to talk to you, you know? Like, you know, we say to them, just ask us the question, we'll tell you. And for them, that's been a real help for them in getting their add-ons developed faster. So, you know, that's something that we never want to change. We always want to be able to be in contact with our community and be in contact with the development community.
I think for me, one of the biggest reasons that X-Plane is so successful and why users love it so much is because of the massive freeware library that currently exists. And I guess for you, that's really beneficial. So do you have any thoughts or opinions on their, like what you've seen in the community and what they've made from, you know, and not charge users for it at the end of the day? That must be really quite good for you guys.
Right, I mean, first of all, the stuff looks fantastic, you know. So because I'm a developer, I don't get to fly much, and most of the time when I'm looking at an add-on, it's because something's broken. But you know, as I'll be working, I'll be looking at the add-on and go, God, that looks really good. So you know, the other day I was putting on some of the Mr. X sceneries, and you know, the detail is just fantastic. You know, mostly I fly R737 to make sure it's working, but you know, I've also put the Zebo on, and once again, it's amazing that people have just added so much more detail. So it's amazing, you know, the levels to which people take the simulator, both in the freeware and the payware community.
Thing too is we have a lot of tools. We have, you know, Plane Maker, we have SDKs. You know, we have a lot of tools that really help freeware developers develop product for X-Plane. And if you look at a World Editor, which is our airport scenery designer, we've had over 10,000 3D airports added by the user community. And they upload these, they don't have to, but they develop an airport, they want to share it, they upload it to our gateway, and it ends up in X-Plane.
Wow.
So it's absolutely amazing to look at that growth.
And it's all, sorry.
When we were doing this, you know, 4 years ago when the gateway was starting, you'd be flying and you go to an airport, you know, in my case, because there's a bug report, and you go, oh, look at that, there's a building. And now, it is surprising if there isn't a building, because you know, you go to some random airport in a place you've never heard of, and look at that. Like, the whole thing's been built, the coverage is amazing, and it just adds to the level of immersion that you can go to so many destinations, and there it is, like X-Plane's been built out. So that response from the community has just been beyond what we expected. It's been absolutely fantastic.
That's excellent, and to have such cool tools as well, I think is what really benefits the community. So I'm going to change the subject just a little bit. So obviously, whilst we're here at FSExpo, there are a lot of people here who have never really heard of aviation, or maybe they're actually more into real world flying, so they've just tried to understand what was going on within simulation. So what are you doing with like flight schools and other more commercial partners to kind of encourage people to kind of get into flight simulation?
You know, it's interesting because we go to Oshkosh every year. We don't always have a booth there, but we're always there meeting with the companies like PFC, Precision Flight Controls, that are commercial companies that build cockpits that use X-Plane. And the thing that we have found is that pilots are probably the single most responsive group we have. I mean, a pilot understands what an airplane is supposed to fly like. And I would say we have, by by a vast majority, most of the pilot community on board with X-Plane that do simulation, and that's growing very rapidly. We're getting calls literally almost on a daily basis from colleges, high schools, universities, setting up aviation. There's some right here that are training young people to fly, and as you know, there's a huge demand now for pilots. And that market is growing, I think, faster with us probably than with any other simulation platform.
Excellent, good. So I think we had a couple of questions from the community. One question. So this has come from Twitch. So what's kind of the future looking like in terms of, so obviously you've got Vulcan coming up. What's kind of on the horizon for you guys, maybe even beyond Vulcan?
We have a lot of things to do beyond Vulcan. We have a number of things that we're working on that I have to be a tease and say we're not ready to announce yet because they're still in the development phase, but we've been lucky that the goalposts keep moving for simulation, and that's one of the things that makes it a great community to be in, and for me as a programmer, a great thing to develop on is that there's always more things you can do. So, you know, as much as we're happy with a lot of things that happen in 11, we still look at it and we say, there's places where the visuals can be better. There's places where the sound can be better. This could be more dynamic. We can do better with the physics. So, you know, there's a very long to-do list that goes out past Vulcan. Once Vulcan is done, I think we'll be able to be more responsive to a number of the third-party requests. Yep. We've gotten some very good requests for things for modeling and for graphics, where the add-on makers will be able to do better, and we'd like to get to them. And it's like, we got to get through Vulcan first, you know, because it's just this big thing that we've got to swallow and get down. We've also had a lot of requests for better integration of VR. You know, VR is, for people who try it, it's a pretty mind-blowing experience when you realize that you're inside the plane and it all works and it's all real. It's like going to the Smithsonian and then breaking into the exhibits and playing inside the airplanes. But we've had third parties say, well, we want to play with this too, and we haven't had time yet to really expose that. And I think that once the community can play in VR too, that's going to take it to another level. So things like that are on our roadmap, you know, where as soon as we can get some time, we want to be able to give them those features and see what they do with it.
Awesome, great. So I think we're going to wrap up there. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for asking us. And you need to come over and fly the landing competition.
I think I will be what Ben is hoping for, or to actually see something crash and burn.
I will be there cheering when the flames go.
Awesome. Honestly, guys, thank you ever so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I will see you soon for the landing contest.
All right.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you for the next interview.